can answer the question, Judge. You can't handle the truth.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Welcome to After Hours AM, The Criminal Code, with your hosts, Joel Sturgis, Eric Olsen, and Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM, The Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Tonight's going to be a special case. See, all October long, we're kind of doing, if you're an avid listener, you already know this, but for people that are just catching on to the show, and thank you, we picked up a couple new affiliates, the Web Radio Network and a few others, so people are just hearing us. We're giving October the paranormal / true crime treatment. And tonight's no exception, and we are going to be talking about a really cool case that's always, as a paranormal investigator, I've always loved it because it's the only case that I'm aware of where the victim allegedly came back from the grave to point the finger at her own killer, or rather how it was done to convict the killer, and that's Zona Heaster. And so you're going to want to stick around. Top of next hour, Dr. Cole will take us right through that entire case and give us her thoughts on whether or not the ghost actually came back and pointed the bony finger at who done it.
J'accuse.
Right? And of course, that write-up right now, you can go on over there to thecriminalcode.com. That's your one-stop shop for all things true crime. You're going to want to hang out there for a little bit. There's a lot of different articles dealing with a lot of different facets of the true crime, not just this, but a whole ton of different things. And of course, you get the doctor's write-ups at the end of each article. So you're going to want to definitely visit thecriminalcode.com. And after you're done with that, and if you're not already there, shame on you. Shame on you. You need to go to americas-most-haunted.com and read Eric's write-up for the article that goes with this show. Not only can you listen to the show there when you show up there, if you do miss it live here, which you should be hearing it live. Let's just be honest, folks. Come on. That's the best way to do it. But
I should add,
yes,
in the interest of full disclosure, that when Clarissa has written up an article specifically for this show, like she's been doing all this month of October, really my article just kind of
it's a collaborative effort is what it is on the website. But yes, absolutely want to make sure that the credit goes where credit is deserved. And Eric does borrow heavily upon Dr. Cole's article. So again, hit both places. You're going to love it. One of them is thecriminalcode.com. That's Dr. Cole's website. And then our website for the radio shows is, I almost said the name of the show, but it's americas-most-haunted.com. One-stop shop for all things amazemo.
So true.
Can I talk now? Can I breathe? Cool.
In the fewest possible number of words, you have conveyed all the important information.
You can't tell I haven't done that a few times in my life.
All you would have had to say is, amazemo.
Amazemo. That's it. Just mic drop.
There
Done.
you go.
Right there. So, as always, first hour is dedicated to the hijinks and humor of what is usually funny true crime headlines, and today's no exception. Our Dr. Cole, our resident forensic psychologist, Dr. Cole, brings us, she scours the web, people. She scours the web to find us the best, the cream of the crop, true crime headlines.
Yeah, and sometimes they're difficult to find, but this week was not one of those weeks. There was a lot of weird stuff out there. So I would like to start close to home, if I could,
sure,
for me.
Let's do it.
So, yeah, and I know we had a story about high school students a few weeks back. Do you remember that? I don't think they were out here, but they baked some brownies. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And they baked some brownies that everybody said were pot brownies, right? So I was like, is this the same story again? I almost buzzed past it, but then I realized this was a different story. So,
well, it's not. Wait. Eric, before she begins, you need to take a wild guess without looking. What do you think that they made the cookies with? And it's not pot because she already kind of barred that. So, what would you think? What's your short list of things
that they made the cookies with?
Yes. What's secret ingredient? And this is gonna shock you when she tells you. So, you're never gonna guess in a million years.
So it's not only not cannabis, but it's not even cannabis related. Is that true?
It all depends on whether the former owners of these things smoked a lot of pot.
Okay, that was good.
All right. Okay. I'll step aside. Dr. Cole, go ahead.
So, 2 California high school students bake a batch of not brownies, but cookies this time, sugar cookies, containing one of their grandfather's ashes.
Oh!
And served the treats to classmates.
Oh.
Soylent Green is people. So,
would that be cannibalism?
It is odd, isn't it? I don't believe it's technically in the. Maybe it is. Goodness gracious, it's not a question I have been asked before.
It's human remains, is it not?
It is. Well,
they're transformed.
I was like, only about 10 to 20% is actually your loved one. I mean, if we're being honest.
Oh, that is true.
They are chemically transformed by heat.
Yes, and a lot of it is just sort of like charcoaly sort of debris and things like that. But regardless, I don't think, I wouldn't want to eat ashes of say, like anything.
No.
You know what I mean? If they were like, these are regular fireplace ashes, eat up, no.
Get the bib ready, I'm digging in.
So this girl, apparently, so she because at least when I was in high school, if someone brought treats, I was eating them.
You're all about it. Oh, yeah. No, I'm telling you. Free cookies are free cookies.
Like, I wouldn't even care if I knew the person. If some random person walked up to me and said, do you want a sugar cookie? I'd be like, yes.
It could be a guy wearing a do-rag that smells like...
Wait, what is that faintly dark, almost ashen quality?
Did you drop it on the ground? That's okay. I'll eat it.
That's still free, right?
As long as you brushed it off and it was under 5, let's make it 10 seconds.
Yeah,
and anybody that knows me now knows I'd probably still do the same thing now. Random person. You want a cookie?
It could be anybody. Any unkempt hippie could show up with a cookie and you're eating it. Why do I feel so woozy now?
Only good people give out cookies.
Right.
That is true.
Everyone knows that.
That is true. The brownies.
It's baked goods. Like who goes through the trouble to bake something? If you're going to poison something, they're just going to pick up a pie at like Baker Square or something. But if you're doing it yourself, I'm assuming you're not poisoning it. I don't know. Too much work.
But that's
point.
Maybe
homemade.
Yeah, maybe if I was really dedicated to poisoning somebody, I'd make it myself.
Well,
I really would, because it's that much more intimate. Yeah, I made that myself. I didn't use Pillsbury as an intermediary to kill you. I did it directly.
Now, since we're sort of diving into the more sordid side of baking, home baking, if you think about it, everything made by hand, unless the person literally wears gloves, actually contains part of the baker or the chef.
Correct.
Your DNA, your germs, your skin flakes are in there.
You, though. That's when your mother tells you it's made with extra love. That's those skin flakes. That's the love, man. That's the love.
It makes it
made with
better.
mom's skin flakes.
Yeah, it's and I don't see people like, I don't know. This is just a strange story. It's a strange story all the way around because I guess they asked to the student's mother. She spoke to a local TV station, right? And the mom says that she was outraged by the incident and said, "It blew my mind. I was really repulsed, and I was upset that I wasn't even notified."
It was a great gag. It would have been great.
I know. I'm like, Wait, that's what you're upset about?
You weren't invited.
Wasn't even invited to the party.
No cookies for Mom.
It's my dad's ashes and all. You could done and let me know.
I couldn't. There was just so many things wrong. So anyway, I guess it hasn't been proven for a fact that there were ashes in the cookies. All that people know at this point was that some students complained of them not tasting right, and the girl was going around telling everyone that is what they did.
Well, maybe it's just the arsenic she put in it. She's just using the ash story to get over on it.
Yeah, well, it'll cover this actual poison.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. We'll just tell them it's ashes. That way, they'll never think they're really poisoned. They'll be too repulsed about the ashes to really care about the cyanide we put in them.
See, but this is how people ruin things for everybody. And I do have a beef with this, honestly. Like now, when you bring stuff to like a soccer match, soccer moms, that sort of a thing.
Yes.
They're like, we only want things that are in packages.
Yes.
Like we want things that are store bought. And I'm like, you know what? You're ruining it for everybody else. I'm telling you. I don't want store-bought cookies. I can get store-bought cookies anytime.
Yeah, you don't see bake sales like you once did either.
No, because of all the concerns about that, and it ruins it for everyone. So now it's like, thanks. Now this school is not going to have baked goods for the next forever.
40 years.
It's going to take a while.
Still talking about the fire in my dorm room in college.
And that was a few years ago.
That was a while back. Oh, look, he's here.
He survived the fire.
The Wittenberg torch has arrived.
See, now you've ruined it for everyone, and nobody can do that. So that's the problem. But I have so many. I have so many stories to get to tonight, and I really want to get to this one because I think it's very kind of Halloween-ish, this story. Like it's not actually funny, but I had to share the story because I don't want to be the only one haunted by it. Okay.
It's that bad. Well, when you say you'd be haunted by it, that's saying something.
It's bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a funeral home in Detroit named Cantrell Funeral Homes, and it was taken over, I guess, last year by Raymond Cantrell. He took over the business from, I guess, it was owned by his father.
All right.
So
Family
this is an inherited business, yeah. And they have more than one funeral home too. But this is the one in downtown. So state inspectors had walked into the Detroit establishment one day in April. So this is way back when, in April, and they found 2 bodies grown over with mold, and the face of a third was covered with a, quote, strange fluid. They had been stashed in an unrefrigerated garage for weeks or months.
Oh, my God.
Yum.
Why I have to share. So they basically came in and revoked their license, right? They shut it down.
I hope so.
But then something happened where authorities got an anonymous letter recently. Okay. So on Friday, I think of last week, inspectors abruptly came back, even though this was already, they thought a done deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they received an anonymous letter, and in this funeral home there was a false ceiling, and there was no way to see it, like I've seen pictures.
Drugs.
It was done really well, this false ceiling. And there's no way inspectors would have found it without this tip off.
Yeah.
So they find the false ceiling, they get into it, and they find the corpses of 11 infant children.
Oh my God. I think I said drugs. I thought it was another drug. Oh, 11 babies?
Fact.
Wow.
Why? From where?
Gosh, so many. Oh, man.
I know.
Evidently,
evidently
the number of babies it takes to change a light bulb is in 11.
Oh
my Lord.
Oh. Actually, some levity is actually appreciated because I honestly, when the story came out,
oh my God, that's just so horrible.
When the story first came out, like when it first I actually saw it when it first broke, and they didn't have a lot of details at that time. So I'm thinking to myself, I was talking to Henry about it, and he's like, where is he getting these bodies? Is he like a serial killer? Do you know what I mean?
Babies, yeah.
Of course.
And so I'm thinking that this guy isn't just a mortician, he's also a killer, and that still might be the case. I'm putting it out there. However, more has come out. since the story broke. And it turns out that now Detroit, it's in an area of Detroit that is fairly bad. I know most of Detroit is, but that is fairly bad off at this point financially. And so people kept coming to this funeral home with the bodies of their loved ones saying, we want to have a funeral, but we don't have enough money right now to do a real funeral. And Mr. Cantrell, Raymond Cantrell, said, that's okay. I'll store the bodies here for you, while neglecting to tell them that he had no refrigerated storage.
Oh, my God. Oh. So these poor investigators go in there and, wow.
Yes. So he Dahmered them up in the crawl space.
He installed a false ceiling and had 11 infant children that now the state medical examiner, because the medical examiner has already seen some of these kids, already identified them when they passed away. And so now they're bringing in the ME again to say, can you identify this corpse? Because some of them, because of the weird temperature changes, and it had been summer, remember?
Yeah.
Some of them have gone into states of mummification. Others look like they started to be embalmed but weren't completed. I mean, it's just
horrible.
A nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
Oh, could you imagine being the investigator to uncover that, to be the person going up there? Oh.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, that something's wrong because you got an anonymous tip. And I guess they're thinking it was from a worker. Because that's the other thing about it. Like, I was thinking, I don't know why, I'm thinking of this like tiny little funeral home where one guy is kind of puttering around.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is a funeral home that has multiple employees.
Wow, I thought it was just one Vincent Price looking dude that's running the place.
People knew.
Always wringing his hands.
Always wringing his hands and saying excellent for no good reason.
I mean, so basically what the prosecutor is saying is that it's not just the actions of this particular man there, right? It's the actions of everyone there.
It's the whole staff that's in on this.
Yep.
The whole kit and caboodle.
That's yep. They're all gonna go up the river with them because wow, that's just horrible. That is truly sad. I do apologize for my bad humor.
Well, I mean,
how are they just from a practical standpoint? So obviously, under normal circumstances, especially when they're not frozen or refrigerated, there would be processes going on. How
the smell?
Right. How do they? That's my question. How do they prevent that? Were they wrapped up or anything?
Some of them were in garbage bags. Some were in cardboard boxes. No, they were not preserved in any way. That's why the bodies in the garage were molded over.
That place could be haunted. I'm telling you right now. If there's anywhere in Detroit that's haunted, which there's already a lot of different places. It's there. It's definitely there.
So he just put the infants anyway, not the bodies in the garage, but the infants, he just put their bodies in whatever box they had available or garbage bags and tossed them up in the attic, essentially. It's unbelievable.
We'll save that one for later.
I'll double bag that one.
I had to tell people about it because I was so disturbed, and I know it's not funny, but
thanks for sharing. God.
Well, true crime is not always humorous.
Yeah, right. Wow. Okay. Well, I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Yes. Well, this one, I kind of, this is wrong to say, but I'm kind of digging this person's mugshot. They're just because it's so when you think of the word smug, that's this person.
Mug.
Yes. Sonia Farrak, okay, she's from Massachusetts, and she worked in the Department of Public Health, all right? Sure. She was arrested in 2013 and sentenced in 2014 to 18 months in jail because she had gotten high on the job, okay? And she was using drugs that she had lifted from the Amherst lab where she worked.
Wow, she looks high in that picture. I mean,
I know.
I'm just saying.
And small. So they already knew that she had a drug problem, right? But so let's say you arrest somebody that has a drug problem and you're like, okay, you need to get treatment. You need to be in jail. Yep. Well, this week, see, another story where it's like, but this week, the full extent of her activities was discovered during a state investigation, and it wasn't just the occasional drug dalliance that caused her troubles. From 2005 to 2013, Farrak was a heavy user of cocaine, LSD, and meth at the lab, among other drugs.
Oh, my
and she
Lord.
even whipped up her own crack cocaine using lab supplies.
Whipped it up. Here, I'm just going to whip this up. Here, I'm going to make some crack. Hold this.
Yep.
Isn't she resourceful?
We're not going to use gloves. We're going to make sure our flakes are in this one.
But this is so the biggest, like the biggest problem with this. I mean, there's so many problems with this, but
I was going to say, Clarissa.
for me, the biggest problem with this is not the misuse of the lab supplies or the drugs or any of that stuff, or her being just it's completely irresponsible. She has worked on 30,000 criminal cases.
Wow.
In those years, processing people's DNA and things like that.
And high
Under
the whole
the influence
time.
of many things.
Cocaine, LSD, meth, and crack cocaine.
Wow.
Damn.
I'm high, and I'm doing it.
Surprising
Doing DNA. I'm high.
She's not investigating herself under the surface.
I know, like, wait, whose fingerprint is this? Oh, never mind.
Well, I mean, let's analyze this. All right, so from a psychoactive standpoint, unless she was really loading up on cocaine, in theory, that wouldn't necessarily alter her ability to perform. Now, that's really unusual that someone who becomes a habitual user of anything, including cocaine, is able to maintain a sort of moderate use, maybe. Mm-hmm. So that's very, very difficult. The crack, no way, but it's very that it would be short-lived. Feasible to actually work. But right, it's very short-lived.
Yeah.
But the LSD, oh my God, that lasts for days.
It's a
literally hallucinate.
Oh yeah, that DNA is gonna eat me. I just know it is. I need to run. But I mean, the coke would just make her do her job faster. Really?
Well, but that's what I was going to say. Like, I mean, in general, Eric, I would agree with you that some of these drugs wouldn't necessarily impair a person. However, when you're looking at somebody who is a lab technician, especially in cases with DNA and things for criminal cases, you have to fill out certain forms in a certain way, and you have to process things in a certain way, and they all have a bunch of steps that take a bunch of time. And I know that people that do meth and cocaine often are not the most patient people in the world.
Not really, no. They tend to not want to wait in lines.
So I can totally see somebody who is high on meth or coke not doing the steps and just filling the forms out however they felt because they just want to be done with it.
That's true, too. How'd she get caught?
Well, it was a huge investigation, I guess. And they talked to colleagues and talked to her. I don't know. I mean, she eventually ended up admitting to a lot of it, I guess.
Wow, I would assume because of LSD, she might have stopped and said, if it weren't for those meddling kids and that dog, I would have gotten away with it.
You're alone in a cubicle, man.
It really sounds like their quality control is maybe not totally up to snuff. If this has been disappearing for years, drugs disappearing for years and years and years, and no one noticed?
Well, and the other thing I'm just going to point out that you can't get from watching Breaking Bad, when you cook meth, for instance, or crack, it smells really bad. It smells really bad, people. Like acrid is the only word I can describe. I've been in a meth
lab. I was in a meth lab one time.
Right, and I've smelled it multiple times working in a prison. So it's like, it's very, like, who is also processing in that lab and going, well, that smell is new. What you doing over there?
Yeah, exactly. I went in a cabin one time, and I didn't know that they were doing making meth because they had gone since then. And there was like a 50-gallon drum of this black tar substance they left behind and stuff.
Oh no! And I mean, so
bad.
Explosive.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It was so horrible. Dangerous. And usually with like crack, it's like baking soda and some other cutting agent, but you're still cooking. You're still cooking down cocaine, which is very acrid smelling. So I'm just very, oh God. So anyway, the biggest problem with it being she had a hand in at least 30,000 of these cases. So now every defendant who was locked up or who was acquitted I mean, I don't know if they can unring that bell. I think if they were acquitted due to it, I don't know that there's anything they could do because of double jeopardy.
Right.
But they at least have to review all the cases where someone was found guilty partially due to
New trial.
something she had handled.
New trial.
If I was a lawyer of one of those defendants, you better bet I would be on the phone with everyone.
Yeah, exactly. New trial time. Come on. Your little DNA monkey was high. Come on. Give me a new trial.
Can you imagine undoing, what was it, 8 years worth of cases? I mean, that's unbelievable.
Insanity. That is crazy.
So she was unbelievable case. But this next, good God, this next case is I hope it will make you laugh because it made me laugh for all the wrong reasons. The cops, this is the headline. He went after his son with the chainsaw, lost his own leg.
Who's he, Leatherface? What?
No, his name is Douglas Ferguson, 76 years old. He was arrested after 3 months of medical care. In a Tennessee man finished 3 months of treatment following the amputation of his leg on Tuesday in connection with a June 28th event that cost him his limb. Now, I don't know if you guys have read this yet, but if you have not, how would you imagine that this man lost his leg?
Well, I've seen enough Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. It's when the person's running away and something like that happens and they obeyed Leatherface, he cuts his own leg or what have you. I'm going to say he went after the son and the kid moved.
Okay.
Cut his own leg off.
Eric, is that, because that's what I was also thinking. Eric, do you have any hypotheses?
Well, I happen to know.
Do you?
I happen to know that there's another yard implement involved in the tale.
Okay.
And so, this was kind of like a Ace Hardware battle.
Oh, those are the best.
So I will leave it to Clarissa to detail the details, the gory details, as it were.
Right. So imagine now, first of all, please do remember, everyone, that this man is 76 years old. Okay. And he's going after his son with a chainsaw, a running chainsaw. He tried to attack his son with a chainsaw as his son was mowing the lawn.
Wait a minute.
Why was he so exercised with his son?
Well, apparently it's a long-running feud, and they don't have contact all the time. And I'm thinking, honest to God, like, hey, he's on a lawnmower. It's really loud. He won't hear me coming. You know what I mean?
Talking behind him.
He's got like the headphones on so he can't hear something. So he kind of he runs up on his son with a running chainsaw. The son sees him just in time and, quote, defends himself against the attack by running over the suspect with the lawnmower.
Oh, no. The kid was on a riding lawnmower. He runs over his dad with a running lawnmower.
That is correct.
Wow. Wow. Goodness. My God.
Can you imagine the contact between the running chainsaw and the rider mower? I mean, they both could have been hacked to bits.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, you cannot make this
destruction.
Stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And if you're the son, let's just say you were some random person on your lawnmower and this happens and you turn you like whip the lawnmower around because you're trying to defend yourself. I mean, what do you even think at that point? Like, oh crap, I just ran over someone with a lawnmower. Like, I don't even, I just.
Thank you, John dear.
And if the kid really hated him, he would have backed over him a couple times just to make sure.
That's true. So no, well, he did not. They called authorities and they got to him in time. And I mean, they couldn't save the leg, but they did save his life. And they finally did. He's on a $25,000 bond, and he's going to the judge soon because he has recovered.
Could you imagine that family reunion when that happens? It must be lawnmowers and chainsaws aplenty, hedge clippers. They're all going after each other. I'm gonna get you.
Hey, Stumpy. I mean, Dad. I mean,
they all stop at Sears before they show up and gear up. I like that Husqvarna up there. Is that the Ranch King version? Yeah, give me that one. That's the 51cc. That'll cut through some legs.
That's the Papa Stopper.
Right there. That's the landowner version. Yep, give me that. 20. Give me a 48-inch bar. Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
Slow down, that grandfather.
Absolutely gruesome. And yet I am laughing because I'm sorry. I don't know what has to go wrong in a family for that to occur. But
yeah.
That's a high level of dysfunction.
And it didn't even happen in Florida.
I know.
I would have thought for sure that kind of carnage would have been a Florida story.
I agree with you, but luckily for you, Joel, I do have a Florida story that is intellectual.
Oh,
sort of.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Well, lay it on me.
So this is the quote I feel like that kind of sums up the criminal. Okay, this was his quote about his crime. It was, "If someone has to die so that I can make some money, so be it."
Wow, now that is a really cruel and cold-hearted individual that'd say that.
That's nihilistic, I would say.
I would say so.
Solipsistic.
So it's a Florida man. He was sentenced to 40 years for plotting to bomb Target stores to disrupt the stock price.
Say what?
That's
what?
Convoluted.
I know.
That's kind of strange.
I had to read it too because I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. So Mark Charles Barnett, 50, of Ocala, he was convicted in July on federal charges of attempted arson, possession of an unregistered destructive device, and making an unregistered destructive device. So he testified that he was going to place bombs in Target stores all across the eastern seaboard. And he was going to place bombs specifically hidden in food packages for some reason. They show a package of potato au gratin that he had messed with.
I like that brand.
I was thinking that I don't eat au gratin potatoes, so I guess I would have been safe on this one. But he bought the bomb components, assembled at least 10 of them, and he concealed them in packages of stuffing mix, breakfast bars, and pasta. And he offered people money to place them in 10 stores, theorizing now that the company's stock price would drop because of the bad publicity. This would allow him to buy Target shares on the cheap before they rebounded.
That's insane.
That is a complex plot.
That's like a supervillain plot right there. I'd expect the Joker to try that.
He sounds like a bad novelist.
He does.
Well, and I mean, okay, here's the deal. So, would it cause stock prices to go down?
Probably
potentially,
not.
yes.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe
it's just too
little.
Clarissa, it's just too many moving parts to be successful. Too many people involved. Too many things to go wrong.
And I just feel like if somebody, I mean, yes, it might disrupt stock prices for a short while, but first of all, you have to be really sure that they are going to rebound. I mean, what if something else catastrophic happens? There's just so many things that could go wrong here. Yeah.
A lot of moving parts in that plot. And, at any juncture, had it fallen through, it wouldn't have worked. And what, he's killed hundreds of people by blowing up targets? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And the other strange piece of it to me that I don't understand, and I'm hoping that maybe you guys, it's an answer that I'm just not getting, is that, so he's putting it in these food packages, right? And he was offering money to place them in the 10 stores. How did he know that they would blow up in the Target store, or that people would even link it to Target?
Exactly. No, that's a good point. And of course, how did he know that one of these people just didn't turn him in? Okay, ultimately, how did he get caught?
That's a good question. Let me see if I can find out. Well, and the other thing is, you remember the Tylenol scandal from a long time ago?
I do.
Where it was, poison Tylenol. And this is what I think he was really forgetting, is that he's putting it in different types of au gratin and breakfast bars and pasta. Do you know who got blamed for the Tylenol thing? Not the drugstore, Tylenol.
Yes.
So if he's putting it in Betty Crocker au gratin,
yes,
I'm guessing Betty Crocker would have been
you buy that stock then.
Good, Glenn. Yay.
You
watch
gotta
the
be
market.
flexible.
Yeah, you got to be ready to pounce.
With these evil schemes, you gotta be flexible.
Yes.
So apparently, this is what it was. Somebody flipped on him. So a witness testified that he offered someone $10,000 to place bombs in these targets. $10,000? You know what? Like, dude, what are you complaining about? This $10,000 just to randomly place bombs?
Yeah.
He invested quite a bit in this evil scheme.
He really did. Because 10 stores, $10,000 a piece, that's $100,000, right?
No, I think it was $10,000 for all 10 stores.
Okay, so $10,000 for a person to run around up and down the Eastern Seaboard. Hopefully that he included, gas money and hotel stays in that budget, because that eat into $10,000 pretty fast. This guy's a moron. This guy's not even an evil genius. He's just a witless genius. I mean, he's a witless idiot. He has no idea how stocks truly work anyway.
How are the bombs to be ignited?
Yeah, I see. That's what I don't understand. Like I said, if they don't explode at target, there's so many things wrong with this plan.
God forbid someone buys it, gets a home, right? They put it in the cupboard and someone dies and it blows up. This guy has zero conscience, and now is he going to be held for attempted murder?
Well, he got 40 years, so I still think that's almost a light sentence, to be honest. Because to me, it's a mass terror plot, is what this is. But here's the really galling part to me. So Target stocks are $84.42 a piece.
Yep.
Right now.
Yep.
That's how much they are worth right now. So he could have bought 119 shares of Target stock
easily
with the 10K.
With the 10K.
Yeah.
So why not just do that and hope they go up more?
Yeah. It just makes no sense. It's a ridiculous
stock market that's
thing.
been down recently. You know what I mean? So if you bought now, chances are it is going to rebound. So
yeah. I mean, Target is more of your. I dabble in a little bit in Target and Walmart. All those things are definitely your safe stocks. They always turn a dividend. So you're going to get money off them. Absolutely, you are. But everyone's looking for that next Microsoft, and that's so few and far between. And so this guy to think that Target stock, I don't know. I don't understand it at all. I just don't get it. It's insane. I give up. My head hurts now.
It's an extraordinarily strange plot, and I don't think that Target stock would have dropped enough to even really make it worth his while. I mean, the Target stock hasn't dropped below the $50 mark in since the 80s.
Yeah, it's been a long time. That's a Minnesota company too, right here. So
is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're based right in Minneapolis. Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's where we have Target Field and Target Center and da-da-da.
Yet another hole in the plot. All right, so let's say it all works, right? Mm-hmm. How does he know it's going to ever go back up? Maybe he destroys the company.
He might put him under.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was thinking the same thing. It's like he's putting a lot of faith that it's going to come back to pre-attack levels. I mean, I'm guessing since it's Target that it would, but it might not. Things like that have tanked companies before.
That is true. Bad PR.
For instance,
yeah.
Facebook. I don't know that Facebook is ever going to come back. Their stock. Because it was at that all-time high when they first went public. Sure. And since then, they have had a ton of scandals.
Oh, yeah. And there's more on the way.
Going
Trust
down.
me.
Oh, yeah. It's down. Well, yeah. When you sell people's data for psychological experiments that they haven't consented to, it's not just an ethical violation. Turns out it's kind of a legal one, too. That's in the off chance that Zuckerberg is listening. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's just what they're willing to admit to.
I know. Oh, you know that they've run experiments on their own too. Like, don't give me that.
They only admit to the stuff they're caught with. Can you imagine the stuff that they're doing right now that we don't know about?
Oh, one algorithm that I absolutely know for a fact that they're doing is that they said that negative engagement is your negative posts is what spurs more engagement. Right. So if you just see positive things in your feed, you spend much less time on Facebook than when you see something that gets your ire up.
That's true. That is true.
So I've unfriended all of these people that do that with me, that kind of get my hackles up. I just unfriend them. I don't want to deal with it. So it's like Facebook digs up friends from like 5 BC now, that haven't posted in years, and they find a post and they put that into my feed. People that I've never interacted with before that I happen to be friends with. I'm like, thanks for the nice algorithm there, Facebook.
I find
we're going to get her with this.
If we're talking about Facebook, I find Facebook utterly inscrutable. There are times when I think I kind of have it figured out. I've never put a ton of stock in Facebook, so I don't worry about it that much. It's just like, okay, yes, you got to do it, so I'm doing it, right? And if you're going to do it, then you at least try to figure it out to a certain extent. But when they did that algorithm change regarding friends and whatnot, I don't know what it is months ago, that the big change fairly recently, it utterly discombobulated not only my feed, but where my feed goes. And my numbers, and I'm talking about on the America's Most Haunted, so it's a little different because it's not a personal account. It's I guess it's a business account of some sort. No, it's a fan site, I guess.
Fan site, yeah.
Technically what it is for the book, I guess. Anyway, it's, it's a marketing tool, let's face it. But the numbers are just wildly all over the place. And sometimes they go way, way up. I'm talking about every post in terms of numbers of people who see them. Sometimes they go way, 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 way up out of nowhere. Can't figure it out. Sometimes they go way, 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 way down. You know what I've seen? They have the new, and they keep changing how they're displaying it. What I've seen lately is 0 people saw this post. Yeah. And then 50 people liked it. Well, how could 0 people have seen the post when 50 people liked it and 4 people responded to it? How is that possible?
I got no answer for you on that one.
No, that's because I just like stuff. I turn away and then I just click.
Yeah, you turn your head.
People love me on Facebook. I don't know what you're talking about. Every post I put out's gold, baby.
Oh, man. I have no idea. Like, honestly, I am not the best at social media. I will admit it. I have so much other stuff that I have going on every day that it's very difficult for me to engage consistently. So unless I was to hire somebody, which i.e. would not be me, I don't know if I'm ever going to have time to kind of master that, unfortunately.
That is true. Well, anyhow, the Facebook is a conundrum wrapped inside an enigma with a big question mark.
God, yeah.
So,
and with a big griddle sandwich on top.
Riddle me this, Batman. Okay, where are we going next? I do see that there's a wiener that's going to jail.
There is that. I do want to, because this is a personal question. This is not about Anthony Weiner. This is one other one that can be a very quick story, but okay. I want to know how far you guys would go to say conceal a crime, because if you're caught, you have to think quick, right? So this is in, I believe this is also Florida, in Largo. There was a woman named Daryl Hutton who, I'm not going to read the whole story, okay? But she was stopped by cops. And the cops are, she's trying to get her ID out from her purse, right? And she opens her purse, and there is a small glass pipe.
Her mugshot is flipping priceless, sorry.
With Brillo and burnt residue inside. So think about this, you guys. It's a glass pipe with Brillo as a filter. That's what they use as a filter. And burnt residue inside, which is, in case everyone does not know, that is a crack pipe, right?
Yeah.
So she realizes that the officer sees this, right? So she looks up.
So that's probably not good.
Right. And so it's like, what would you do to conceal evidence? So what would you guys do to conceal evidence?
I think
vaginal, obviously.
But they're still going to get that back.
I think I'd put my hands up and say, "You got me.
Right?
You got me. Just throw yourself on the sword of compassion, please. Right. I don't want to go to jail."
Maybe something about I'm a plumber in my spare time.
I know. I'd be like, how did that get in there? I don't know. I'm not sure what I would do. Hi, officer, do you want to hit? I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do. But
Well, that's a shocker.
Sometimes you're just caught. You know?
Exactly.
Purse, you have a lot of explaining to do.
But not Daryl Hutton. She was not going to be taken down.
Not this time, copper.
No, she put this glass crack pipe with a Brillo filter in her mouth and chewed it up and swallowed it.
Oh, my Lord.
Wow.
Yep. I mean, did she... that sounds like
killer.
internal lacerations?
Yeah.
That was the other thing about this story, is that nowhere did they mention that she was taken in for medical care and that she's now okay. So I'm a little disturbed about that.
Wow.
So Florida, you might want to update the story.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like some red poop to me.
Yeah, well, her picture looks like she'd be a glass eater. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Rough life, you can tell that. And she's, she's a known entity there in the police department. She's been arrested for a bunch of things before, multiple drug prostitution charges. But
rode hard, put away wet.
Yeah.
A glass.
Oh, yeah, but once in custody, Drum said Hutton made a big swallow and finally opened up her mouth to reveal a cut on the roof of her mouth. But no pipe in sight. Drum said he looked in her purse again, but the pipe was gone. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So I would never go that far. I had to share it because I'm like, my gosh, what I thought after reading the story was, man, that's dedication.
That is dedication, getting away with something, because they also nailed her with tampering with physical evidence anyway.
I know, right?
And a
piece of me is like, if you're going to do that, well, I don't know. I might let that charge go because
maybe they're hanging around the bathroom where they're going, we know you're going to get that pipe out. We're going to get that pipe out of you one way or another.
Do you know what that technical term is?
What?
Potty watch.
Potty watch.
I imagine that happens from time to time at prison.
It happens all the time. That's why it has a name.
Every day.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Cole.
Sorry.
Oh, darn. I pooped out my lacerated kidney.
God. So
isn't that supposed to stay in?
Let's go to something a tad bit less morbid. Let's talk about Anthony Weiner for a second, because I'm guessing that this story is, it broke a few days ago, and I'm guessing this is going to go largely unreported because nobody cares about
the Weiner anymore.
Well, but the thing about it is that people forget that it wasn't just that he was sending unsolicited pictures of his private parts to people. He was sending them to an underage girl.
That is true. A lot of people forget
that's
that part.
That's why he went to prison. It's not just that he was like unsolicited texting. She was underage, and he knew that. He knew she was underage. There's rock solid proof that he knew.
And he's a 54-year-old man, so I mean, we're not talking about some 20-year-old kid that's just too dumb to know any better.
Right? Yeah, it doesn't care. It's not that big of an age gap. Like he knew. Like she mentions that she's underage, and he continues to hit on her and says he knows.
Guys, very, very sorry. I've just been called away. There's a medical emergency with my mother. I hope to be back in a few moments. I got to go at least find out what's going on.
All right, Eric. Not a problem. Our prayers are with you.
Sorry.
And if you don't come back, our prayers definitely be with you. Yes. And we'll catch up with you if you don't come back promptly. So don't worry about that, man. You go deal with it. You got to deal with. We got this.
Yep. Oh gosh. So. Anyway, that's puts a damper on things. But the thing
it does. But,
I mean, the thing this is kind of a damper in some ways too. Like for me, is because he was only sentenced to 21 months, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's going to get out early because of good behavior in prison.
Wow, man, and I love the his aliases online: T-Dog,
I knew you were going-
T-Dog, and
T-Dog.
Carlos Danger.
Where does he get T-Dog from?
I have no idea. I mean, he's the Wienermeister. That's what you should have went with.
I mean, like, does he go by Tony, maybe? I mean, is that the T? Like, I just want to know. Where does it come
maybe. From? And this guy, though, you look at his pic, the guy's a douche anyway.
Oh,
you know, one of those Washington insiders that thought he was above the law. No matter what he did, he'd get away with it. Well, he got popped is what happened.
He did. He did get a prison sentence, which I was fully in agreement with, but they're going to take 3 months off of that prison sentence for having good behavior in prison. And this is where I really sort of disagree. I mean, of course he had good behavior in prison, because guess what? There's no underage girls there, and he probably doesn't have cell phones.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And did he actually go to a real prison, or did he go to that nice posh?
He went to federal white-collar prison.
All right.
Yeah,
I toured one of those. It was a federal prison camp here in my state, and we toured one. I think it was some type of criminal justice in college or whatever, some course I was taking. And man, they got pool tables there, tennis courts, they got pools, weightlifting rooms, a movie theater. I mean, it was wonderful. There was no bars, no chains, no nothing there. You walk there, you swear you're going into just another part of the neighborhood.
Yeah, and some are like that for sure. I don't know this particular one, Federal Medical Center in Devens, Mass. I have no idea.
It's a medical center on top of? Why was there a medical center?
You know what, though? A lot of them have that title. And if they have that title, it's generally because they send some medical inmates there. Like we have one out here called California Medical Center. Okay. But it's just because they also have a hospice unit there. But it's not a medical center.
Gotcha. It's not like a hospital. It's not like you show up and there's an ER there. It's just
no. Yeah, no, it's a prison. But
Gotcha.
I just can't believe that they're letting him out early for good behavior, because I would expect a popped pedophile to have good behavior in prison. They typically do.
The wiener is going to be loose soon, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and do I consider him does he technically have pedophilia? No, I don't know about that. Probably not, to be honest. I doubt he would meet criteria, but I'm just mad that he's getting out early. It just seems like such a bad criteria, you know. He's got
a bad story all the way around.
I'll put him around a bunch of single women, give him a cell phone, and see how good his behavior is.
Yeah. Put him back in his normal environment and see how well the treatments did for him. Mm-hmm. I doubt that they're going to do very well at all.
Yes, I agree.
All right, moving on, Dr. Cole. Where would you like to go?
You sent me this story, so would you like to tell the story about the North Carolina man?
The North. Let me queue up my email that I got. So hold on 1 second. You're talking about the guy that shot himself, right?
Yes, he called 911 himself. So it's a compelling story.
Here we go. Okay. All right. Let me cue this up for you. And I lost where I was at. So just.
Alrighty, I'm back.
Okay, good. You're here just in time. Okay, North Carolina man. And I do a pretty good Southern voice of this too. So by the way, just be ready for that.
All right.
The title says, "Squirrels did me in." North Carolina man tells 911 after being shot by his own booby trap. Edwin Smith set off a booby trap at his North Carolina home, law enforcement said in a Gaston Gazette report. A 69-year-old man, 69-year-old who ran a tripwire from the back door with a shotgun. Now envision this, folks. You open the door and the gun goes boom, right? You've seen it in the movies. A shotgun. According to what he said to the 911 operator, was shared, of course, by the WBTV, their local affiliate. I think that's a Fox affiliate. Smith was on the horn, of course, Smith was the one who opened the door of his Cleveland County home and triggered the booby trap with gunfire hitting his arm. Wow.
He's actually very
but when it came to assessing the blame, Smith singled out the culprit. This just sucks. This really sucks. It was the damn squirrels. It was them damn squirrels again. Squirrels did it. They're doing me in. So Smith called 911 and he decides it's the squirrels' fault, not mine. It can't be mine. So he's laying there dying because he got shot in the arm, mind you, people, and with a shotgun blast, which is not a pretty sight. But it's funny what he told the 911 operator. "I blew my arm off. Please hurry. I'm going to die," Smith said in the 911 call. "Just tell everyone I love them, okay?" I'm out of here. I'm out here in the driveway, my arm blown right off. I'm shot anyway. I'm done. My life has gone away. Smith did not die, by the way, guys. He did survive. His arm was saved by a deputy who applied a tourniquet to stop the bleeding, according to the WCNC, after being taken to an area hospital in Shelby. The Shelby deputy said it was likely the 68-year-old would be flown to Charlotte for more treatment. But now there's a sign that now it's not showing it here. Okay, there it is. I scroll down. This sign. I love this guy's sign. It's absolutely epic. This sign really kind of says it all. Right? You guys ready? You ready?
Yes.
Okay,
Ready.
warning. Vehicles that drive up this private road will have their tags sent to the sheriff's department for positive ID. All you crackheads, meth heads, heroin users, drug dealers, or anyone doing criminal activity, and and illegal aliens too, stay the hell off. This is private road. Thank you for your thanks and have a nice day.
Because I'm busy shooting my arm off and I don't need any interruptions.
So this guy, right, he sets a booby trap because he's all worried about whatever these criminals might be coming down his driveway. So he decides, though, as he's feeding the squirrels, he blames these poor, helpless animals. Yes, he was feeding the squirrels. He was outside feeding the squirrels, opens the door, forgetting he sets a booby trap for himself, shoots himself in the arm, and blames the damn squirrels did it to me on the 911 op.
Right?
It was the damn squirrels again. They're all evil. They're evil. They're evil clan.
Imagine the squirrel sitting there like munching on like a sunflower seed going,
Yeah,
wait, dude.
What?
I didn't do that.
We're not to blame, man. We didn't do anything. We're
talking
just
about?
eating your seeds and hanging out.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I do have one more if we have a couple of minutes.
Oh, we got a
That
couple
is
minutes.
somewhat
We got lots.
somewhat similar.
Yes, please.
So it is actually similar. It's like an accidental thing because that was clearly an accident. So Deputy Patricia Parker in Hillsborough County accidentally pepper sprayed students at Lopez Elementary School. I know, that was kind of my reaction too, even though I felt really evil.
Oh my God.
Like, how do you? So she was, and that's the thing is that she was a deputy for years. She was in service from 1990. She retired in 2015, and then she was rehired in July on a temporary contract to work as a school security guard.
How do you? I mean, how do you accidentally pepper spray somebody? Have you ever used pepper spray? I mean, there's a little more to it than what you'd think. You know, there's a lot of aiming going on.
Yeah, no, I've not used pepper spray myself really, but I've been around a lot of pepper spray, and that stuff is, wow, it is noxious.
It is bad. It is bad.
Like you can't spray that anywhere in an area, like an enclosed area at all, without everybody getting.
No, I knew somebody that used pepper spray one time. They attempted to use it, and the wind shifted, and they got hit with their own pepper spray.
That's what I'm saying. Like pepper spray is, in my personal opinion, I do not think pepper spray is a good form of defending oneself.
No.
You know, like people that carry the little pepper spray. I don't recommend it. I don't know many people that do recommend it because of wind. Because, like, let's say you're getting attacked in your vehicle, for instance, but you can reach your keys, you get the pepper spray, and you spray him directly in the face. You're in an enclosed space. You are going to feel it. Believe me.
That is true. That is very true.
So it's
Hey
not
guys,
very-
I sorry to interrupt again. I'm getting reports and have to make some decisions. So since we're near the top.
Yeah,
of
we're
the
gonna
hour,
take a break. We're gonna get
I'll
out of
be
here
back.
and.
After the top of the hour, at least briefly, I got to find out. We got to decide about hospitalization, all this kind of thing. This is actually ongoing. It appears she had another seizure, unfortunately. But I mean, it doesn't appear to have been a stroke, but seizure is what led to this whole recent last few months of all kinds of issues. So it's not good. But let me go try to figure out what's going on and see if I can stick around. Because
Sure.
I really would like to stick around for the second hour. So
Sure.
I'll be back shortly.
All right. Well, let's finish up now. This lady was hired to teach these kids, or what was she doing? Why was she brandishing pepper spray? So how did they accidentally get sprayed with pepper spray?
Well, so you know how you have very young children,
I
right?
do.
And you know how inquisitive they are.
I do.
Little kids, right? And so, if you have something they don't recognize, you know what I mean? Like when I'm out gardening in the yard, there's kids in the neighborhood. Like I'll have tools out there, and they're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "No, don't touch that."
Don't touch that. Yeah.
Like hedge trimmers and all that stuff. And so, basically, there are a bunch of kids coming up to her, saying, and her utility belt, and saying, "What's this? What's this? What's this?" And so she decides to take the pepper spray out of said utility belt and spray it onto a napkin.
What?
In front of them. Yes!
Why? I mean, you would think that pulling your pepper spray is akin to pulling your service pistol.
You don't do it unless you're going to use it.
Yep. Unless you absolutely have to pull that, you would think that there'd be some, reason to do so, that there would be some checks and balances. Just make sure you don't do things like she did.
Well, and the other thing is when they said it, like she accidentally, I thought that she pulled it out of her utility belt and accidentally depressed it. Well, accidentally depressed the top of the canister or something.
Yeah.
No, she purposely got out a napkin and sprayed it into the napkin, which of course there was overspray, which came into contact with, quote, all 7 of the children.
I like that. It says children causing them mild discomfort. What? Pepper spray is nasty stuff.
Yeah, it's not mild discomfort.
There's no mild of pepper spray.
Choking, gagging, skin burning.
I did get pepper sprayed once by a buddy of mine. We were messing around. I'm like, pepper spray me, man. Oh my God, that's horrible stuff. I was young and dumb. It was last year. But anyhow, no, it wasn't last year. I was probably in my 20s.
I've never been, I did accidentally spray some in my own face one time.
My God.
I'm serious. Yeah,
have you ever tased yourself?
No.
You ever tased yourself yet? Oh, you got to try that little. That's a gem right there. All
what is that? What is it like?
Oh, it hurts.
Does it?
It hurts. That's what it does. What's it like? It feels like you're having a giant Charlie horse all over your body, and you fall down.
Oh my God!
I tased this one guy one time. We were messing around. We had a taser we bought for like $10 at Walmart, and he peed himself. I mean, that's all.
They sell those at Walmart.
Sorry for the snort, but yeah, they used to sell that kind of stuff over the counter. In fact, you could order a taser for $10 on Amazon right now. No questions asked. Sent to your house.
I've always been curious about it, but I
I'll tase you. Don't worry. I'll tase you.
I have a heart condition, so I shouldn't.
That's true. You shouldn't do it. You could tase somebody else though. You can watch the fun. That's all. I like this. I like what they say though in the closing quotes here. This was a teachable moment with some impressionable children.
Yeah.
What?
Yes. But then they go on to say, an impressionable children who look up to us, and our deputy failed to meet the most minimum of our expectations. Yes, I would agree with that assessment.
Wow.
This is an extreme lack of judgment. Yeah.
I would say so. Wow, between the Florida man and the stock option and this lady pepper spraying children and the squirrel man. Oh, it's a week of headlines.
Don't forget
the lawnmower man with leather face for a father. Yeah, what a night of true crime headlines. We come back. We're going to take a turn to the paranormal, and this is quite an interesting tale of a ghost coming back to seek justice. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org. Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Eric, unfortunately, had a family emergency he had to tend to, and so we hope everything is fine on that end, and hopefully he will come back to join us on the show. But if not, our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. But tonight is we're continuing on with what has been a paranormal meets true crime theme of October on the After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. And tonight we are talking about it's a strange case of Zona Heaster, and she is the only person to ever really come back and point the finger at her killer after she was dead. And it's a big story, folks. It's really, there's a lot of moving parts of this. And Dr. Cole has done an absolutely wonderful job of summing that all together, bringing all those pieces together at thecriminalcode.com. Again, that's thecriminalcode.com. Check that out and read right along with us as we're talking, because there's a lot of strange or high strangeness, even stranger than normal, Dr. Cole, going on here.
This is, I was, and, full disclosure, Joel was the one that suggested this story because I was, more unaware of it. And so I was going into it. I don't know what I was thinking, but I don't know that I was close to really knowing what it was about, especially since it was so long ago. But
can I read my intro, please?
Yes. Hey.
All right. Just so everyone knows, because I don't want people to worry and I don't want to sound like a freak out guy. She had a seizure, so unfortunately, that's the second one in a few months. So now they're going to have to increase the medication, which we don't like because we don't like the side effects. We've been lowering it, so that's why she had this, it would appear. We've been lowering it. We went below obviously a threshold. So, but they're not even going to take her to the ER. I will have to take her to get examined tomorrow. But everyone thinks it's better if because she's come out of it. There do not seem to be any additional, you're slow to respond coming out of a seizure, but there aren't any other symptoms that we can see. So that's where we are. So I'm going to be on the show until the end, and hopefully nothing more untoward will happen throughout the evening, and we'll go get her checked out, and I'm sure they're going to increase her medication, which just it makes her very unresponsive and drowsy. It really impacts her quality of life. So I'm going to see if there's any alternatives. I don't know. It's tough. Clarissa, I know you know about this. Any thoughts? This is her second. She had the first one about August 1st. Hadn't had one till now. We had cut the medication by 2/3, and that appears to have triggered it.
Is that it? I wonder, medications now for seizures are much better than they used to be. They used to be terribly sedating, although when someone ages, it becomes more sedating because your body's not filtering things out as well as it used to. And so seizure medications, especially because they can build up in the body as well. So I worry about them becoming toxic with someone who is older. But I mean, if the medication was working for her before, I would probably think that just bringing it back up a little bit would be better than trying to switch her to something completely different, which risks a cascade of seizures because she's switching,
Okay. All right. Well, so what have you guys said about this fascinating?
We were just getting into it. You can go ahead, man. Give your intro.
Yes.
Give your intro.
Well, it's not much of an intro, but it's a little bit of an intro. The 1897 death of Zona Heaster Shue and the trial of her husband for her killing is one of the strangest murder mysteries in American history. Is the only known case in U.S. history where the testimony of a deceased person was admitted in court and led to a conviction. As we continue our spooky Halloween series on the intersection between true crime and the paranormal, our secret weapon, forensic psychologist Dr. Clarissa Cole, presents the facts and her surprising verdict in the notorious, enigmatic case of the Greenbrier Ghost.
And this is so. Don't let the date turn you off to this case, because I'm telling you, this. I honest to God feel like this could be on Law and Order today, and it would be just as fascinating. So, on the 23rd of January in 1897, the body of Zona Heaster was found in the home that she shared with her husband of several months, E.S. Shue, and a local boy. Poor kid. Andy Jones had been sent on an errand to the Shue household to check and see if Zona needed anything from the blacksmith shop. When he got there, he saw Zona Heaster laid out at the bottom of the stairs with her eyes wide open and staring. So he knew at a young age that she was dead. Dead is dead, right? So he ran home, panicked, told his mother, and eventually the coroner, George Knapp, is called in. And he made his way over there. And I think it took him about maybe 20 minutes or more to get there. And when he got to the house, he noted that Zona was not at the bottom of the stairs anymore. She'd been carried, and that's what he'd been told. She'd been carried upstairs, washed, redressed, and laid out on the bed already. So remember, back in 1897, things were done differently. Typically, the custom of the day is that the coroner would get there, pronounce death officially, do at least some sort of cursory exam, and then women would come in, wash the body, and redress a woman, just like men would do that for a man. But George Knapp, the medical examiner, didn't really see a whole lot wrong with it because she was Shue's new wife, and he was clearly inconsolable. Mm-hmm. Like, he was just out of it with grief. And he had already dressed her in her best dress, placed a veil over her face. He was cradling her head, wailing. And so Knapp just did a rather cursory examination. And at the end of it, he said that she had succumbed to everlasting faint or childbirth, which, we don't talk about that today. But everlasting faint would be something that I apologize. I do apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
It's the old phrase. When I researched this case and I kind of dug into the pathology report, and asked a coroner I knew, I said, what's that mean? And he said, that is actually old-timey reference to something like a heart attack.
Right. I'm imagining it could be something like a stroke or something as well. Something that just is silent and is, right away. And so, or he thought that it may have also been childbirth, because the rumor was that she was in the early stages of pregnancy. Right. So this was on the 23rd. By the 24th, now remember, back then they didn't have all the embalming processes that they have now. So a funeral had to happen right away, and the wake had to happen right away, because you're just washing and dressing the body, and that's it. So, because it starts to set in right away. So by January 24th, Zona had been laid out for her wake in her parents' home. That was fairly customary, usually out on the kitchen table or whatnot. And during the affair, her husband, Shu, sort of stood vigil at the head of the coffin, and he would express himself sort of audibly if anybody came too close to the casket. He was fiddling with a pillow that he put next to her head in order to make her comfortable. And funeral goers kind of found his behavior to be a little weird. But he had also just lost his new wife. So, what's weird in that situation? What's not? But one person did not think his behavior was weird, and that was her mom.
Oh, the mother-in-law. That's always the squeaky wheel. Come on.
Yes. So the mother-in-law never liked Shu, but I think she might have had good reason, because E.S. Shu is a guy that nobody really knew. He swept into town, and everybody had found out that he'd been married twice before.
Ooh, he's a drifter with a checkered past.
Yeah, and he doesn't appear to be that old. So she was really, upset. Like, he's just, a drifter with a checkered past. A drifter. So, yeah, exactly. That was on his calling card. And so she was really upset that Zona married him. She barely knew the guy, and she marries him. And so right away, she sees him at the funeral, and she's like, yep, he did it, right?
Yeah, he's the killer. He has to be.
Yeah, so Mary Jane was in a lot of grief, and she was convinced that he had done something. And she prayed every night that her daughter Zona would visit her and tell her exactly what happened, right?
Yeah.
So, as the story goes anyway, after several weeks, that's what happened.
Zona just shows up one night going, Mama, he killed me. You're right. He was a bad, bad man, and he killed me.
He killed me.
Yeah. Killed me hardcore.
Or if it's me, it's the annoying, hey, Ma!
Wait, are you from Jersey all of a sudden?
No, seriously, when I used to yell for my mom, I sounded like that. I'd be like, Ma! So,
yo, Ma! Here's the deal!
So on 4 consecutive nights, Zona reportedly visited her mother, Mary Jane. And in those visits, I guess she didn't speak that much, but she did tell her that Shu had murdered her because she hadn't prepared any meat for supper. And as she was sort of illustrating the events, Zona's spirit, I guess, walked away from Mary Jane, and her head turned all the way around to face her mother. Right? Kind of exorcist-like.
Yeah, right?
Capture your attention.
Yeah.
Like, I'm terrified by this, but apparently Mary Jane, so she 4 consecutive days this happens, and in a panic, she rushes to the prosecutor's office, and she tells him about her visions. And she says she was sure that Shu had killed Zona, and that there would be evidence to prove it. And like, if I'm the prosecutor at this point, I'm like, oh my God,
you're nuts.
It's a mother in grief. Yeah, it's so sad, but she's in a lot of grief. And but God love him, he did his due diligence. He sent out a couple of deputies to speak to Dr. Knapp. That was the coroner.
Yeah.
And to the prosecutor's surprise, Dr. Knapp, when they came to talk to him, he admitted that he didn't really do a thorough examination. Exactly.
Well, the husband kind of stopped that, though,
because he was so distraught. And so, and so the medical examiner actually, when this came up, he did feel kind of bad, because he's like, he was so distraught, I didn't want to disturb him. I didn't realize that this would come up. And so he talks to the prosecutor, and, they work together. So the prosecutor and the ME decide that, just for everybody's benefit, let's disinter the body and do a real autopsy.
I wonder how hard that was, though, back then, to get that body out of the ground. I mean, they really don't go into detail, but back then, that was a big deal.
It's guys with shovels, right? And also keep in mind that there is no embalming, right?
No, that and there's also the religious aspect. Hollow ground, laid to rest. I mean, it took a lot. It took a lot for them to get that done.
Luckily, it was her family that had wanted that. I guess her Shu was against it, the husband.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course he would be.
Yeah, they didn't care because the prosecutor sort of ordered this as a matter of a legal, issue. Luckily, they said that since she had died in January, late January and into February, it was very cold outside. So her body had been quite well preserved. So February 22nd, so that's almost a month to the day, the exhumation and autopsy took place. Her organs were examined first, which is customary, and they appeared normal. And next, she was turned over in preparation for removal of her brain. And as Dr. Knapp transected the flesh at the top of Zona's spine, a detail just jumped out at him. The first and second vertebrae, that's the ones that's right at the top of your neck, right where your skull begins, they were disconnected from one another. And when he probed further, he found that the tendons and ligaments that hold the neck and the head were torn, and her windpipe had been crushed.
Wow.
In some, she obviously had been strangled, and strangled violently.
And, that takes some force right there. I mean, that's a lot of force.
To break a neck is extreme force. That's beyond.
It's not like the movies where they just basically, where it shows them so nonchalantly just, whipping the neck around. It takes a lot of force.
Do we know anything specific about his background other than the rumored 2 marriages, or presumed 2 marriages or 2 divorces? Did he have any sort of criminal background? Did he have violence in his background? I know the mother thought he was a quote unquote criminal, but was that due to anything specific or just a general ill feeling?
I think that on the mother's part, it was due to a general ill feeling. She didn't know anything more. I'm absolutely sure she would have brought it up if she had.
Yeah.
There is really nothing out there.
One of the ex-wives did step forward and say that he was abusive in that relationship as well. And this is all my own notes from going over the case, because I actually investigated this area.
Cool.
I did a paranormal investigation of the house.
Oh.
So I've been there. And so
in West Virginia.
Yeah. Yep. It still stands. You can still go there and go check it out. It's still there. And now my findings, because I really dug deep into the local records, because I was there. Yeah, I mean in the town, so the local records were all there. Was that one of his wives did step forward? One of his ex-wives did step forward and indeed say, he was violent during that marriage. Mm-hmm. And that was why the marriage was terminated, because of his violence. And remember, this is later 1800s where divorce was still very frowned upon.
Right. It's not easy.
It wasn't easy at all. So they had to go through a lot of hoops to get these divorces. And so he was a bad dude. He was just a violent guy. And he killed her, according to my records, and maybe you uncovered this as well, Dr. Cole. He really killed her. It was over a dinner dispute. He wanted meat on the table.
Yep. So. Supposedly. And if he was a domestic abuser, then, maybe she talked back. Maybe she was, anything could have set him off and made the violence extremely bad. And so we knew that he was a domestic abuser, and I suspected that anyway. But we don't know much about any other sort of criminal past, so it's very interesting. But when they saw this, obviously they changed her cause of death, right?
Yeah, right there and then. And one thing to really to maybe add is back then, Elba Zona Heaster was a bit of a free spirit. Now, she had a child out of wedlock, which was a big deal back then, which was a huge deal. And that might have been part of the reason why she married him, to be that father to that child.
I agree.
Because, a woman that had children out of wedlock, that's already a strike. But then to be a single mother was pretty much, unless your husband died in the war, that was pretty much unheard of.
Yeah, exactly. And your child would maybe not have had a name really, or standing in society, because he would have been considered a bastard in the technical term of that word. And it would have been very difficult, even though it was almost turn of the century. We didn't have any sort of real, women's lib yet. That wasn't until 1918 or so. So she was in kind of a dire circumstance. But at this point, everybody knows that she was murdered. But
Yeah, everybody knew that she was murdered by the guy. I mean, that was
like, do you want to put that mother on the stand?
Well,
yeah, you know that, but like, do you want to put the mom on the stand? Is what I'm saying. Like, hey, so tell me about these spiritual visits you have. You know?
Well, you know what's funny though, and of course you're going to get to this, is how the spiritual visits actually was admitted in court. Is another whole nother deal too, because it wasn't the defense that brought it in as exhibit.
That I'm not sure. I only saw the transcripts between her and her own lawyer, and then you see the defense asking her questions after that. So I actually had assumed that it was the prosecution that brought it up, but it could have been the defense, maybe that was cross.
It was the defense that brought it up, and it was because now back in those days, the judge had to allow it because the defense brought it up. Had it been the prosecution, it could have been thrown out, but the defense brought it up to discredit her. And so once they opened up that door of the paranormal, it was open. It became public record, court record at that point.
Yeah, so they put her mom on the stand, and basically they do sound like they're being a bit, like badgering in some way. Like they're basically saying, like, wouldn't you agree that you were fraught with grief and that this was a grief reaction? Wouldn't you agree that this was a grief reaction, that this was, dreams or visions brought on by grief? And she was a very good witness. I feel that she did a very good job. She's very steady. She did not get emotional. She didn't contradict herself. She did not contradict details, but she also didn't leave out things that could have been, make her seem flawed, which a lot of witnesses will do. They want to seem perfect. Mm-hmm. And she didn't do that. So she had a really good testimony about why she went to the prosecutor and why they exhumed her daughter, and he was convicted. They ended up convicting Shu, gave him life in prison, and he died less than 3 years later from an illness. Yeah, he died at Moundsville. If I'm not incorrect, didn't he die at Moundsville Penitentiary? Yes, he did. Yeah, of an illness that when I actually went to that prison and investigated that too. Wow. So that's the only reason why I know so much, because I was there and we were investigating it. It was part of a whole deal that we were doing, and strange, odd case. But was there really a ghost involved? And maybe we should take a break, and we'll come back and we'll kind of ponder that exact question: was there truly a ghost involved, or Dr. Cole, do you think it was just a mother, really trying to stick it to this guy? Maybe she just wanted justice for her baby. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
And she's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
What do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. And got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Well, Eric, we didn't hear your 2 cents. What do you think about this case? What do you think? You think a ghost showed up and talked in the ear of the mom? What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Well, it's a fascinating case, and one that has captured and held the attention of investigators and the public at large, for 120 years now, basically. And so what seems to have happened, and again, I'm just going by, like anyone else, I guess, other than you, Joel, sounds like you got at some original source material by going to the actual town. But, as far as I can tell, one of the key phrases for me is that the mother prayed and prayed and prayed, right? Mm-hmm. For some sort of sign, because she was so sure that he had done this one way or another, and she was extremely distraught. Of course, who wouldn't be? From having her young, what was she, 21-year-old daughter taken from her. So it's a terrible situation. She was mistrustful of the guy anyway. So she begins praying, give me information, tell me what happened, have her, I guess she literally asked for her to appear in front of her. And so, all right, so we know that happened. So one of 2 things happened in my mind. Either her wish was so strong that she literally somehow managed to summon this information to in essence generate the information which confirmed what she already thought, or her prayers literally were answered, and the daughter literally appeared to her, gave her very detailed information on what had happened. I think it's really interesting what people latch on to about the case is, why do you do it? Why do you kill her?
Yeah.
Because she didn't include meat in the meal. So that's a really specific detail. And I don't, people can make up anything, but I tend to agree with Clarissa that this feels legitimate. We'll never know if the mother somehow generated this with her own mind, or if literally the spirit of her daughter appeared and conveyed this information. The other part that's so interesting is the 4 days in a row, because I imagine you could just kind of dismiss it if it happened once. By the time it's twice, 3 times, 4 times, wow. This is one adamant spirit. You asked for help, Mom. I'm here to help you. So my personal feeling, which sometimes is possibly different from a more, professional opinion, is that, yes, I would like to think she really did appear to her mother, convey this information, and that this is the only case. There are there's some mitigating circumstances here. It's not exactly a case of where the testimony of a ghost, of a dead person, was enough for the conviction.
No.
What really was enough for the conviction was the simple fact that upon, unfortunately, disinterring her and actually performing the autopsy, where evidence was found of strangulation. So, all right. So now this was not natural. This wasn't even somewhat natural. This was absolutely murder. No question about it. And there was only one guy around. So that really I think what it turned out to be for that jury in that courtroom was, well, this is certainly corroborating testimony, but we already have some really damning evidence here. So that's my opinion on the situation. I would like to think that Zona herself did show up, took a little break from her transitioning, talked to her mother. She wanted justice. She knew her mother wanted justice. They presented this information, and for once, it justice was done literally from beyond the grave. But if we really are examining the case, we can't leave out these mitigating circumstances that there was no other real viable suspect, A, and B, when she was re-examined, very stark evidence of a murder was found. So none of this would have happened without that evidence.
And what's interesting is the S.E. Shoe individual now, he opposed, of course, the autopsy, vigorously so, tried to get it stopped. But what's also funny, and this kind of maybe speaks to his personality, during the autopsy, he sat in the corner whittling a stick with a knife. Until they got to her neck, he jumped up and then really abruptly tried to stop the autopsy.
Right.
Like,
And there were multiple
Yeah.
There were multiple things that he did. Like he dressed her in a high-necked blouse. He put a scarf around her neck when they laid her out at the wake. And he also sat at the head of the coffin. And when anyone got too close, especially to her face, like let's say to give her a kiss on the cheek or something, he would pop up and oppose it.
Yeah.
Did not touch her. Oh, my poor wife, and like rearranging her head. So like, I mean, it was pretty darn obvious he knew what was wrong with her in retrospect.
He knew. I mean, this guy was probably, if you had to work him up today, would you maybe call him almost a psychopath kind of personality, maybe?
It's weird because I actually would say he is probably not much at all psychopathic. And the reason I say that is because he was nervous.
I suppose, yeah, a real psychopath.
He was scared.
Yeah.
And he was not only scared, but like, he was a domestic abuser. And that is, one, it's anger, but it's also insecurity that drives domestic abuse. And hey, man, psychopaths don't feel a whole lot of insecurity. If they're going to abuse somebody, it might be because they're straight up angry, but they don't have the same profile as a domestic abuser. Domestic abusers are driven by very strong emotions. So I would say he's a sociopath, but not psychopathic. No.
Would control have played a role? I mean, if you had to sit with him today, do you think he was very much, well, the note of the day was the man was generally in control of his household, right?
Yeah. And I imagine he'd be not I imagine, I know he would. I've sat in rooms with literally hundreds of domestic abusers over the years, and they always try to control the interview. They try to control me. They try to I've had guys look at me and say, I don't like your tone of voice. I've had guys say little missy, call me little missy. I've had guys call me a lot worse words than that, and they typically are domestic abusers. And it's because if I'm getting too close to the truth about what may have happened in their past, they will do anything to deflect me away from that. And when I continue to question in that arena, they go to demeaning me because that's how they're used to dealing with women.
And that's how you know you're getting close, though, right, Dr. Cole? That's how you know you're getting to. That's your little BS detector.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the more like flustered they get, the more I realize that I'm hitting some nerve anyway. Even if I'm not getting close, I'm getting close to something. So if I'm not right on with that, it's got to be nearby, So it usually doesn't ruffle me at all. It's just sort of more evidence for me to collect. But that was speaking about like this case, it was really difficult for me because you know how I am, right? I want to write up the cases in psych terms, this isn't a ghost, So like, I was gonna write it up in psych terms, and I got to tell you, I had a really hard time.
Are you? I was gonna ask you.
If you're interested, I'll tell you why.
Yes, tell us why,
please. Yes, I think that part's fascinating. I loved your conclusion. It was really well. I'm not gonna say more. Go ahead.
It's, because first of all, when I thought about this case, just in general about what happened, what I wanted to say, like what I went into it thinking, was that a good psych profile for the mom might be something about grief and about how grief, complicated grief reactions can cause things like hallucinations, like visions.
Sure.
It can cause people to do very erratic things, like run to a prosecutor's office and insist that they dig up the body, even if that you don't know if there's evidence of anything. But what really struck me about Mary Jane is that when they were questioning her, and this is what stood out more than anything to me, when she was recalling back her visitations with Zona, she was, and this is almost hard to explain to people who have not studied memory, but I'm going to do my best. what she did was, when she was recalling the details of these visits with her daughter, the details that she included were kind of odd. Do you know what I mean?
How so? How
like she was talking about how Zona mentioned to her that she had certain types of jam, and she had the thought that, oh, I have plenty of those jams too, or something. You know what I mean? Like she was recalling things that Zona said about not serving meat, and that was why he did what he did, and that there were certain types of jam, and we have plenty of jams like that. And she remembered details about how Zona looked, and when they asked about what Zona said particularly about the crime, or what she said about other things, there were certain things that Mary Jane remembered and other things that she couldn't really recall at all. And the reason that stood out to me is because when someone is lying, lies are usually overly detailed, and they're detailed in very predictable ways. So I went into this thinking that Mary Jane was making up a story, that maybe she was lying, right?
Yeah.
But if she'd been lying, she would have remembered details about the murder. She would have been very detailed about it. And, so all of the lies would have added up to, this is what I remember about Zona telling me about her murderer. But instead, she was relaying details that had nothing to do with anything about jam and about the way she looked. And what struck me so hard about that is because that is how real memories are made. That is how someone recalls something that's true. They recall things that, like people will recall after an assault. Like, I remember his breath smelled like cigarettes. My dad's breath used to smell that way. That has nothing to do with anything, for instance, but it's a real memory. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's the side memories, not that main event memory where, he had to have done it because she told me this detail. Whereas
right,
more
and
like
it's like you
like an aside.
You remember inconsequential. Yeah, you remember inconsequential things because when something is actually happening to you, it's not like your brain is going, like if you see a car accident in front of you, for instance, or a robbery, it's not like your brain is saying at that moment, I have to remember his height, his approximate weight, and the type of gun he's holding. You're not remembering that. What you're remembering is, if you're a veteran, this is what it sounded like when I was in Iraq, and I feel really awful right now. And you might remember his shoes because you noticed that, oh, they're wingtips, and I haven't seen those since since the 80s, things like that. That's a real memory. And so when Mary Jane was talking, I just thought to myself, man, that sounds real.
Yeah. And it's funny, her account of how she appeared to her was, the ghost appeared first as a bright light, gradually taking form and filling the room with a chill. And which, if you look back on now, any researcher will tell you, that is usually, the chill is always present during an apparition event because they're using the energy in the room.
But I mean, let's just, like, if you go with my point of view, Joel, I come from the skeptic's point of view, where I don't believe things like that actually happen.
You don't, right? You don't believe in ghosts?
Not really. I mean, to a certain extent, no, I don't. Like, I was coming at this case thinking, none of this happened. I guess what I'm saying is that, like, psychologically speaking, Mary Jane wasn't acting like somebody psychotic with grief. There were no stories of her acting erratically or strange other than praying for her daughter to visit her. There are no other stories of her acting, disheveled, discombobulated. And her story sounds so undeniably real. And then when they try to discredit her, she does not become emotional, which is another sign of someone lying, right? You get too close to the truth, they get emotional.
Yeah.
And when she offered detail, when they asked her about certain details, she offered things that just spontaneously that they hadn't asked about, that were not exactly flattering to her depiction. That, like Zona had told her to go somewhere and look for something, and she says that I went and looked, but I didn't find anything.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? And again, a real memory, someone would say that. Someone lying, trying to manipulate, they wouldn't offer anything that might discredit this said spirit.
Yeah.
But she did.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
True. I mean, did this make you a little bit more of a believer? I mean, reading what's going down and reading her account, the witness account of the apparition. I mean, did that kind of maybe make you think for a second there might be something to that?
I do keep open that, do I know everything? Of course not. There's a ton I don't know. And is anything possible in life? Yeah. I mean, do I think usually when somebody is claiming paranormal, do I think there's usually almost always a totally different explanation that is rational and based in science? Yes, I do. But there are those cases. And for me, this might be one of them.
Sure. Sure. Usually, yeah, most times there is a basis in rationale. They can explain away something on that order, but like you said, the memories that she was explaining were just too right. You know, where somebody would recall it that way, would mention these smaller details as sticking out rather than these grandiose claims of he had to kill her. This is why. No, she talked about the jams, like you said, and talked about these smaller details. You're right. That is exactly. It was explained to me one time. The mind remembers small fragments.
Oh gosh, and it doesn't remember. People always think like eyewitness testimony, you know, like you have 5 different witnesses. Let's say they're all standing the exact same distance from a car accident. They all have the same 20/20 vision. They're still going to remember it 5 completely different ways. So
It's
reality.
it's the blue car.
Subjective.
It's the blue car. You know, one guy says, no, it was a red car. That guy says a blue car. Well, it turned out to be a green car.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like eyewitness testimony is terrible, and memory in general isn't that great. So, you know, even things that we're supposed to remember, like everybody remembers these things called flashbulb memories is what it's called, like the Kennedy assassination or the Challenger. And people think that they remember everything very clearly from that day, right? Like I remember things about the Challenger, but is it that I'm actually remembering that day, or is it because it's been replayed so many times? And I've replayed it in my own head so many times in certain ways. Am I actually remembering what happened, or am I remembering all the replays since then? And researchers have found out that in general, people are remembering the replays, not the actual memory. And I know people would argue with me strenuously, but this has been studied for decades now, where they have actually videotaped experiences.
Yeah.
And then they videotape the person talking about the thing right after it happens, immediately after. And then they study the people for years, like a decade, and then ask them to recall it again. They say they remember everything perfectly, and then they show them the video. Let's just say people were pretty embarrassed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was nothing.
It's fallible.
Like the video.
It's fallible. Memory's fallible.
Very.
And it only lasts so long, too. It's got a shelf life.
Well, the part I think is really fascinating, and I've seen it certainly in my own life and observed it out in the greater world. I was thinking when you guys were talking about examples of that flashbulb thing, think of the planes hitting the World Trade Center. Yeah. And you just saw them over and over and over, and they kept, they would slow it down. And you almost got to the point where, well, if they can slow it down enough, maybe we can prevent it from happening. Oh, wait, it already did. That kind of thing. And, I mean, that film has been poured over, as much as the JFK film. Yep. So it's really fascinating how the mind works. And I think it's absolutely right that if someone has nothing to hide, then lots of kind of odd little bits and pieces bubble up, and you just say whatever's there because you don't have anything to hide. And I agree with Clarissa. That is the best indicator of all that she was telling the truth, that she gained this information. Now, remember, she wouldn't necessarily, the mother, be able to tell the difference between literally ghost visitation in the real world, whatever that means, and something that she had generated from her own mind. Sure. But not knowing that information was still there, and that information, as it turns out, was still correct. So is that something she could have known without outside information?
I did wonder about that too. I wonder, and that was like the next most rational explanation for me, was that maybe these were things that Zona had told her about at a previous time, that he got really angry with her, maybe, that she didn't have meat on the table at one point, talked about the jam she had in her cupboard, linking it to food, essentially, this idea that he got very angry or things like that. But it doesn't really match up. I don't know. I wanted to write a piece about her having a psych issue, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
I want to say that just, looking at it and really studying it, I'm going to say she had a genuine encounter with the paranormal. The mother did. I truly believe her daughter came back and told her these things. It's just too... Like you said, and she never wavered. There was never anything added to the story or subtracted.
No.
It was always the way it was. And she was unflappable. They couldn't get her to break under any kind of pressure.
And she didn't add anything to it. Yeah.
I really enjoyed your conclusion. Why don't you read that to us about, what your ultimate conclusion was at the end of your article? I think that kind of summarizes where you're coming from and is a really outstanding ending, at least as far as your assessment goes.
Well, thank you, Eric. That means a lot to me. So what I said was, I'd love to give a psychological profile that spins a tale about loss and mourning and how it can twist the mind, leading to hallucinations. I don't feel quite right about it. And there's no corroborating evidence to support that anyway, like stories about how Mary Jane was acting erratically after Zona's death. This might be an actual ghost story. And for once, I'm okay with that.
I love that. You're the doctor, you're the psychologist. You have all of this experience. You have dealt with people just like good old, E.S. Shu. Mm-hmm. I am sure many, many times. And you have enough humility and you are honest enough to say, hey, this is maybe a case where I really can't explain it away, which is I don't mean it quite the way it sounds, but you know what I'm saying. I cannot explain the paranormal aspect or the potential paranormal aspect away using my normal scientific or quasi-scientific tools. And I appreciate that. I think that shows a much greater mind than someone who would, just very tenaciously stick to, it had to be something. It had to be something.
Mm.
Oh, thank you. It was actually hard for me. It was interesting when I was writing it. I remember, thinking about all the different angles, and what I would say and what it could possibly be. And that little voice that, back from school, that was kind of screaming in my head. Like there's always something that we're taught in school that doctors of any stripe really are taught, is that when you're making a diagnosis, you have to have what's called a convergence of evidence. So you can't just rely on one thing. You can't just rely on that one thing, like he's coughing, so it must be bronchitis, for instance. Yeah. You know what I mean? There have to be multiple different signs. He could be coughing because he was smoking on the way in. He could be coughing because somebody's perfume is too strong, sure. the receptionist, it could be anything. So you have to have a convergence of evidence. And when I look at this case, that's what my brain was kind of nagging at me. I was looking for the psych angle, and just there was this little thing in my brain going, you don't have a convergence of evidence. Don't try to create one.
Yeah.
Because that's not right. That's not right doctoring.
The only evidence, though, ultimately is the evidence brought forth by the mother and her sighting in the ghost apparition.
And she didn't have a convergence of other quote unquote symptoms other than that. And so I'm like, well, man, she seems like a very solid witness. She seems like a solid person in her personal life. Like there was nothing to indicate that her mother was suffering really from much of anything. And I mean, she presented very strongly on the stand. She sounded like her memories were genuine. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go in there and fault this woman after the fact by trying to make something up. I mean, do I technically believe in ghosts? Most of the time I say no, but man, I am open to the possibility with this one, and there's a really sadistic piece of me that hopes that Zona came back again to come and get Shu.
Well, that would be great, wouldn't it? That'd be the best part of the end of that movie. Would be her visiting the cell and taking him with her. I think you're right, and the thing of it is she was a great witness, like you already said, and I have no reason to doubt her. And no one else that's looked at this case either can really pick it apart. So you're not alone. You're not alone at all.
And if there were no transcripts of the testimony, I think it would have been a different bag for me. It's the actual words that she uses, and it's like I've seen bad testimony and I've seen good testimony, and this. It's good. I was like, man, I expected to be able to pick it apart. I expected them to be giving her softball questions that I was just going to be able to tear apart. And I'm like, well, man, wow. Okay.
Well,
corrected.
Yeah. But what's great is it's not only is it a crime story, but it's a justice story from beyond the grave.
That's the best part. It's justice that has. and not just justice in an abstract sense, but it's literally justice through our legal system. And how unusual is that when you are then, I didn't mean to sound that cynical.
That's so dated, yeah.
Right. Finally, they got one right.
When you factor in the paranormal aspect, how unusual is it that was the tipping point? You know, that information that came through supernatural sources is what kind of sealed the deal. We've already talked about there was plenty else going on, but remember, they wouldn't have done that work. They wouldn't have found that evidence. They certainly wouldn't have dug her up if she hadn't had that experience and hadn't come running to them.
But
so,
the prosecutor too, though. I mean, think about how many people did have humility in this case. Really?
It's a best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what kills me. Like when you talk about justice, there is justice here because she came to the prosecutor who had no stake in it. It wasn't ruled a murder. He listened to her, sent out deputies. Those deputies questioned the medical examiner, and the medical examiner stepped back and said, you know what? It wasn't my best work.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go back and look at this. And I'm like, dang, that's the way the system's supposed to be there.
Well, but another thought just hit me was, doesn't this kind of open a precedent to have paranormal evidence in court?
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that, and actually, I don't believe it does. And here's why: because it was not. First of all, it wasn't the ghost testimony that sunk this guy. It was the autopsy. The testimony was just what led them to do the autopsy again. And you've got other cases that very strongly involve the paranormal, like the Salem witch trials, things like that. So there have been a lot of cases that have actually involved paranormal. Testimony where somebody came back or told you something. So that's been in court before. I just feel like this is the only case that I can think of where it directly led to physical forensic evidence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great story, great true crime story, as well as a paranormal story. And in the end, she laughed last. She got the justice she was after. Used her mother, contacted her mother. Mother had enough, just enough gumption to go up there and not think she'd be presumed as being crazy, because that's another thing that back in those days you did not want to be labeled as a nut job.
Well, and she mentions too, like they say, aren't you superstitious? Aren't you like into the occult or the spiritual? And the mother says, no, I'm not. Like, I prayed to God. I'm religious. I'm Christian. I believe in God. And I prayed to God to let her talk to me.
Yeah.
So she doesn't sound like she's into the occult, that she's, into all of this stuff. Like, I was using Ouija boards and everything at my disposal.
Spiritualism was still really big then. And it sounds like she was not a spiritualist. So, that could have been the angle. We should mention, though, just because there's been evidence and the tale has been told right here on this show. What is much more common as far as the confluence of the paranormal or the supposedly paranormal and the justice system, much more common is when the information comes through a psychic.
Okay? Yes.
So, for example, we had Christy Robinette on, and she has an amazing case where this murdered young girl, sounds like very similar age. She was a college student to poor Zona, and she was murdered. And, there was no evidence. They hadn't found her. They didn't know where she was. There was no body. And this murdered girl, young woman, started appearing first to her family, to her mother, I believe, actually. And then they brought in Christy, who is a very talented psychic and medium. And she started appearing to her over and over and over and over. And the problem was the dead girl was literally buried. She didn't know where she was, and so finally they were able to kind of triangulate. And ultimately, after a period of a few years, they found the body because of evidence presented to Christy Robinette by this dead girl. And so that's an amazing story.
It is.
Those kinds of things I think happen somewhat more frequently than this. But, who's to say the mother wasn't a sensitive herself.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to this edition of After Hours AM, The Criminal Code. Look it up. It's a great tale. You're going to want to visit thecriminalcode.com and, of course, America's-Most-Haunted.com for more details and listen to the show again. Till then, take care of each other, love each other. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.